put out a video yesterday and it didn't really come out the way I thought it was when I was editing and recording the video. And that is entirely my fault. Basically, I got some facts wrong, and there are some things that I messed up. Some of them are small, like for instance, I was saying that the pre-built was going to be more expensive, and I was referring to the price difference between the AMD and the Intel builds. That was entirely on me. A very silly goof. Then there are more serious talking points and facts regarding the two products that I got wrong, and I saw some pretty good points being brought up in the comments, and I felt like I should at least address them and maybe share some feedback and information regarding this stuff from more intelligent people, that being you guys, the viewers, and those who commented. So I'm going to go ahead and read some of your comments out and put some more accurate information and shout you out along the way. I think you got something wrong. The pre-order deposit of a 100 is just deducted from the standard price. So if the config costs 2200, you will only pay 100 upfront, then 2100 later before the laptop is sent. You can even decide if you don't want your laptop before it is sent and you'll get your $100 back. Yeah, that makes a lot more sense, and I don't understand where my mind was when I was reading the confirmation page to purchase a framework, but clearly I wasn't using my noggin. I have to disagree with the idea of the middle of the road for the MacBook because of the chasm in performance. An M5 is a better comparison. In my region, an M5 MacBook Pro with a 1TB SSD and 32GB of RAM, the nano texture display with a 96-watt charger is more expensive than a pre-built Framework 13 Pro with an X7 and the same specs. If I didn't include the charger and the nano texture display, it'd still be more expensive, which in my opinion is a better comparison to an M5 Pro. In the EU, pricing is just that bad for the MacBook. That's a shame. The pre-built is actually cheaper than the DIY version when I configured it. The framework says that the pre-built is using old inventory where the pricing for memory was cheaper, while the DIY uses the current higher prices. Yep, you can get the same setup with 32 gigs of RAM for around the same price. I want to actually verify that. Oh, we got these side by side, nice. Yeah, so this is our pre-built for 2100, and we've got the DIY for like 150 bucks more basically. That's actually a good note. So thank you very much, silly idiot, for pointing that out. That's a really good point. I had no idea. Framework even acknowledges that they aren't the best value in the space. In fact, they said, actually, we are all for buying ThinkPads with 32 gigs of RAM for $200 off eBay. You will find a used repairable laptop that meets your needs, and that is the most environmentally friendly option. And that's absolutely true. No hate to anybody buying anything on the secondhand market off of eBay or Facebook Marketplace. If that's what you want to do, that is what you want to do. You got to find the best value for you. And like I said, to me, the best value is something that lets you own the device in a sense where you can repair everything to the most granular extent and load whatever software you want onto there. And ThinkPads in that regard can be even more customizable for the sense of you can load Core Boot on them. I think Framework doesn't really have proper support for that, or at least I don't know of any public support for Core Boot. But Framework has the advantage of making first-party accessories available on their website, as well as open sourcing the parts in order for you to develop your own modification. You could literally just buy a mainboard and build everything all around that yourself if you really wanted to. Projects like the Beth Deck exist. There's a great channel called Elevated Systems, and he does a lot of DIY projects with the Framework mainboards. Should definitely go check out his channel if you want to see more of what I'm talking about there. Regarding the RAM option that Apple is offering, they're not scamming you with the non-standard RAM capacities, as you put it. Those options have to do with the memory bus widths that the SoC is designed for and the actual DRAM chips that Apple has purchased to integrate into the system. So for the MacBooks in your example, Apple is using the following: a standard M5 chip, and Apple combines two 12GB LPDDR5X memory chips. The base M5 operates on a 128 memory bus, yielding about 153 GB a second bandwidth, which routes to two distinct memory packages. The M5 Pro chip, Apple combines four 6GB LPDDR5X memory chips. The M5 Pro operates on a wider 256 memory bus to double the memory bandwidth up to 307 gigabytes a second, which requires 4 distinct memory packages to populate the channels. This gentleman continued to further say that he owns a 7840U Ryzen board and is probably going to wait for the next AMD 13 mainboard before upgrading. I will probably get the 13 Pro chassis upgrade though, because getting the overall nicer built machine with the better trackpad, speakers, etc. Though I guess I'd still be using the same audio codec chip even when the chassis upgrades. Currently have to run easy effects in the background to improve the audio from garbage to pretty great. Hopefully Panther Lake boards and all future boards have better audio tuning from the factory, so running a background process for audio isn't necessary anymore. I wonder if Framework will release this audio codec and tuning for some of the older boards for customers that choose to get the chassis upgrade. Yeah, that would be great. It would be nice if Framework could have that ready out of the box, so that way they can create a more uniform quality experience for their customer base. By the way, I think the SN850X is a decent compromise between the power efficiency and speed for the SSD option, as it still has DRAM, which improves performance a lot on an SSD, but it's still PCI 4, so it's not as power hungry as the PCI 5 drive. I don't believe that its DRAM-less drive saves much power over the one with DRAM. And the pre-order 100 deposit isn't an upcharge, so don't expect it to go away once it's generally available. You'll still have to pay that entire price. Yeah, we figured out this part here, but I just went with what the website was saying was the most power efficient, because I'm just going off of what Framework is saying. They didn't give any metrics, they don't have to, but as a consumer who wouldn't know, I wanted to at least walk through that scenario. Because the topic was how Framework lies to you, and that was a play on the trendy video from Marquez Brownlee and Mr. Who's the Boss, because they bring up points in their video about how Apple, as an example, will say that their newest device is up to 6 times faster, but it could be anywhere within that range. So they're probably telling you peaks, but in reality, they're probably reality 1.5 times, 2 times faster, and there's no real metrics to be shown. Framework, on the other hand, is quite literally going to be posting videos online, unedited from what they claim, of their laptop's battery performance, and to show just how long they can get under specific conditions, under specific configurations too. That's not something Apple even bothers to explain in a keynote or when they're advertising. They just give very generic statements saying up to X amount better, and it's all in the marketing to get people to buy it, because that's all Apple cares about is sales. They want more sales, and they want to set an industry standard. And you could say that Framework wants to also make sales and set an industry standard, but they want something else that Apple really doesn't care if their customers have, and that's true ownership over what they're using in their devices. They want them to be able to customize it and get the most out of it that they could possibly ever want to. And they want to see the community expand and create something unique. So basically, for $100 more, you get a 1-inch display and 8 gigabytes of RAM and almost double the performance. I don't see problems with macOS. It is very safe, well designed, and as fast as any other Unix-based system. This is what value means to me, and I personally would sacrifice the customizability of my OS and laptop for such a device. Apple has been consistently showing how long and lasting their devices are, including MacBooks. This is a no-brainer for me, at least for now. I even replied to this comment and I said, fair enough, all on what you prefer. If that is value to you, that is value to you, and there's nothing wrong with that. However, I did want to make a point to say that when you're talking about customizing your OS, I don't know if you mean just functionally or if you're talking aesthetically, because to me, the ability to functionally modify your OS to your own needs is super important. You don't want to have an operating system that's locked down and either phones home, sells your data, or bricks your entire device because you didn't do something because you didn't use it the way the company wanted you to use it. You might think I sound like I'm wearing a tinfoil hat. These are all real possibilities that can happen, and I would rather just eliminate the possibility of that happening to me. That's where value is to me, is control and freedom. Not to mention, Apple can brick machines via software and make them never usable again. Yeah, that's one of the limitations of proprietary systems. So that's why for a personal device, and any device really, you should try to have an open source operating system, but that should be common sense. So I have to say, in my opinion, picking an M5 Pro for the price comparison was a flawed decision, when for performance-wise it would have been the base M5 and it would have still been faster than the Panther Lake based on framework. From what I've read, the max sustained turbo speeds under heavy loads, the Intel Panther Lake chip in the Framework 13 Pro would rather want you to be plugged in to a 100 watt charger, where the M5 Silicon can run without its limits under sustained load without being plugged in. So as a Dutch consumer, I configured the same setup you did for the Framework 13 Pro, which would total me about €2,333 for the MacBook Pro 14-inch without a nano texture display with the base M5 chip, 16GB RAM, 1TB configuration, plus the addition of an €85 for the 96 watt adapter. No adapter is included by default, including tax, or $2,200 with the nano texture display. In ordering now, at best, I will receive a Framework 13 Pro with the September batch as of writing, and they are getting sold out quick. For the MacBook Pro configuration, I could pick it up earliest on the 12th of May at a local Apple store just a mile away, so the difference in availability is also a factor to be included, depending on where one is located. Now for the value part. To anyone that is not locked into any specific application that is Windows only, the MacBook Pro in daily use would offer more value with its longer battery life and higher performance and snappy feeling due to the high single core performance. So in theory, there are more future-proof with a machine that offers this high performance out of the gate. But the price you really pay for it comes down the line when you run into a defect and the machine requires repairs or replacements. But I need a laptop to run audio applications for some of my proprietary audio software and hardware only support, and they only support Windows and OS X. So Linux is out of the question, but I would not mind setting up and dual booting a Windows Linux machine, as I have done this for years. Also, when it comes to real-time audio between dealing with ASIO for all on Windows and Core Audio on OS X, I'll much rather have Core Audio, as I'm sick of dealing with Windows and having to optimize to lower DPC latency. As someone that used to run Slackware and LFS for fun for work on this laptop, I really do fancy a machine I can run Linux on, but the current offerings from Intel and AMD, in my opinion, are abysmal compared to the ARM-based SoC offered, and are generally just a bad proposition in terms of price versus performance versus power efficiency. ARM chips are incredibly efficient, and I think that it is very insane that with the new Panther Lake chip that is coming with the 13 Pro on Framework, that you can achieve about, over 20 hours of battery life with Netflix 4K. And I get what you're saying here with needing to be plugged in on the x86 architecture to achieve the speeds and the performance of Intel's Panther Lake, as opposed to the M5 Mac. Apparently you can just be unplugged and still achieve the full power and speeds, and that is due to the architecture in nature. ARM requires a lot less power to run, however it is more of a locked down and foreign system that doesn't really offer a whole lot of opportunities for modularity and upgradability. I do think Framework would be the company to find a way to add upgradable RAM to a ARM chip, but then you've got the whole issue of trying to find all the Linux compatibility, and that's something else Framework is factoring in for their consumer base and is wanting to make a forefront, because I think Framework's pretty open with it these days. They're not fans of Microsoft Windows, and I think if they could, they would just completely never talk about or partner with Windows or Microsoft, but they do want to sell their products. They're going to try and make it as compatible. So that's where I feel like if they could find a way to make ARM chips upgradable as far as memory and storage go, there's no reason that they shouldn't just delve into the Windows and business class side of things and have a device that's mostly dedicated for Windows with unsupported Linux development. But yeah, when it comes to the proprietary audio software that you have to run into, I totally get that. I don't know how it would work with a virtual machine. I'm guessing not well at all, but in regards to a laptop, I can understand needing to have proprietary software, a proprietary operating system for proprietary software for professional work if you're on a very tight, fast-paced workflow. I'm very fortunate that DaVinci Resolve works on Linux natively. I'm also very fortunate that there are programs like Kdenlive that can do what I need it to in a pinch. That said, I feel like with a larger adoption of Linux, more of these companies that develop proprietary software and codecs will offer support to Linux. Just look at how NVIDIA came over and is now really well integrated with a lot of Linux machines. I mean, the Framework 16 just launched the 5070 NVIDIA RTX 5070 12GB edition, where previously they only had 8GB. That is also a Windows device, so that could be Windows customers that got NVIDIA to go ahead and collaborate to make a 12GB card, but it works just as well on Linux, and Framework has never been shy about promoting Linux, especially with their partnership with NVIDIA. Let's be fair, yes, Framework isn't the best value from a strictly financial point of view. They never were, and they never advertise as such, but not everything can be measured by money only. I currently have a ThinkPad P480, which is considered a super old laptop these days, but it's enough for me and it's super repairable. And when I have to replace it in the future, if nothing changes, the Framework will be the most likely candidate because I value that repairability aspect very much, and I'm willing to pay extra for it. And that's my whole point. The whole idea behind my video was, what is value and how do you measure it? For me, the most value is found when something I put my money towards can truly be modified and repaired to the most granular level possible at the easiest level possible. It is possible to repair MacBooks to a degree, but you gotta have such an advanced knowledge with soldering in some cases to the point where it's really not feasible. If you know that stuff, great. If you want to take that risk, great. There's a lot more points for no return, I believe. And with Framework, they make it basically like Legos. It's just, plug and play for the most part. And that is something I'm willing to pay more money for. Some people are willing to pay more money to have a MacBook that has a very locked down and specific experience. And if that's what you like, that is totally fine. I just think that is a bad deal if you're going to be spending upwards of multiple thousands of dollars. If I'm going to be spending multiple of thousands of dollars, it's going to be for the only company that lets me modify and repair my device as I see fit, and wants me to be able to own my device the way that I see fit, as opposed to the way that Apple would see fit. I have a 2015 MacBook Pro. The original SSD kicked the can, and to get a new 256 SSD, a repair shop quoted me £350, while the M.2 NVMe with a larger capacity, better bandwidth, etc., would have cost me less than £100 at the time. First and last time I bought a secondhand SSD, and to keep the cost reasonable, I got a lower capacity because I really needed a laptop for school. That's rough. Then the battery swelled and put the laptop out of commission until the replacement came, because Apple won't let you turn anything in without a battery. That's insane. The battery was lower quality than the original because Apple won't let you buy a replacement for a 5-year-old laptop without going to an authorized repair shop and getting extorted by the price. The battery lasted a year before I had to buy a new one. If the screen broke, it would cost more to replace than the laptop is worth now. The headache saved by having ready access to spare parts and upgrade path, the old MacBook is basically a paperweight now, and no part of it can be reused reasonably, is worth way more than the increase in price compared to other options. And that just reiterates the point I was trying to make. I would rather pay a little bit more for a device that the company tried to make it as easy to upgrade and repair as possible. And the thing about it is, if this is working for Framework as a startup business and they're continuing to grow each year financially, it would open the door for other companies and competitors to do the same. And if somebody was doing what Framework was doing for a lot less money, who do you think I would be talking about more? It is not the best value in financial sense if you count the purchase price, not possible upgrades or repairs. It's a lot cheaper to buy a new motherboard than a completely new laptop. Exactly. I've always considered Framework pricing to be a first-generation tax, not on the technology, but on the idea of the laptop being, all CRUs at scale. I'm hoping as they mature and become a bigger force, it'll help drive prices down, but I bought a 16 with the expectation that I will be modding it over the next decade plus rather than my standard 5-year cadence. You need to compare it with like a Dell of Lenovo. You need to compare it with like a Dell or a Lenovo if you're the Linux guy. You can upgrade the RAM and storage on those machines in parts like a motherboard, keyboard, back cover, and so on, and it's far cheaper than you can literally get them in any country after a year of it being out. I'm a big Lenovo keyboard and trackpoint fanboy, and I have always gotten everything to work, including the fingerprint, touchscreen, and all other chips on Linux, except one time I couldn't get the 5G SIM card to work, but hey, Framework don't even give you that option. Again, I'm lucky as my job is literally giving me access to all kinds of machines, so I get why someone would be hesitant to buy a used Lenovo or a Dell, but I can guarantee that the business class models are unbeatable in terms of sheer value. My old company used to literally give them away every time the support ran out, as they used them for financial sector and they sat on a table most of their life with the battery never going above 70% capped in the BIOS, so it's not a fire hazard. The ones I took home had their battery health above 90% after 3 years. The ones people took with them used to get trashed though. People are so disgusting. And that reminds me, the one issue every device 100% will have is battery degradation. And if I can cap my iPhone battery at 80 to 95% in the settings, then why can't I do that on my Steam Deck in case I want to leave it plugged in for months at a time comfortably? I feel the Steam Deck cheated us on that one because their competition don't let you do so either. And the only reason why Framework lets you set the battery limits in the BIOS is because their competition all do so. What I'm saying is the competition works both ways, I guess, from my personal point of view. Absolutely, so I want to break this down in a couple chunks. First off, you want to talk about how Framework doesn't even give you the option for a 5G SIM card. Well, if you keep being vocal about it, they might make that a first-party accessory. However, with the expansion dongles, it's very, very possible that anybody could just print out, 3D print, and make a 5G dongle. Very entirely possible. That's what's great about Framework. Apple, I don't believe, offered one up until this most recent MacBook. I could be wrong about that, but prior to that, if you wanted to have 5G connectivity, you technically could use a dongle. When it comes to the two different players in this space, it really just matters on what you're willing to sink into. And there's a lot of people in the Framework community who want to try and make the device as great as possible, and Framework is the only company I know that will hear what a customer wants and act as fast as possible as they can to get it to the customer. Apple typically likes to make things how they think it should be, and if there's enough pushback, then, or a lawsuit in their case, then they eventually slowly tiptoe their way towards getting a halfway decent device, but they'll introduce a new compromise to make it just a bit of a headache. Also, very lucky that you got to work for a company that would just let you take home all those old devices. That is an amazing way to be able to support sustainability and keep devices out of landfills, is just take them home and then donate them or find someone in your family or repurposing them somewhere in your home. Excellent on your company's part for just giving them off to you. Shame on your coworkers for throwing them away though. And then this part, your competition works both ways from your personal point of view. Absolutely, and that's why I am constantly trying to talk about the pros and even the cons of what Framework is, because if Framework is aware of their shortcomings and their issues, and they find a way to fix it, they're going to. Just with this Pro chassis upgrade, there's a lot of little things that are an upgrade functionality-wise from the original 13. And not to mention that if more companies see what Framework is doing and Framework continues to grow in size and maybe one day surpass some of their competition, the competition will start to do what Framework does in the repairability sector, and that's what we want to see. And we got one more comment that I've got for last. First,